You're listening to the Homeboys podcast, recorded in our Indiana office and with combined 40 years of experience. Here's your hosts, Clint and Scott.
Hey everybody, you're with the Homeboys and the Homeboys podcast. We're so glad that you're here with us. As always, I'm here with my devastatingly charming co-host, Mr. Scott Adams. How are you, my friend?
Good, thanks. I think you oversold me a little bit, but...
Hey, that's a good intro. That's an Emmy-winning intro right there.
I'll take it.
Anyway, we've got a fun show today. We're going to talk about turnkey investing in turnkey real estate, how we got into turnkey, how we were introduced to turnkey, and how we have facilitated turnkey and offered it to our clients for a very long time. So we hope to add a little bit of humor and some of our experience into this, and we're just glad that you're with us. So anyhow, we're into the new year. How's your new year going for you so far?
So far, despite the world being pretty much a dumpster fire, I don't have many complaints. You know, my family's good, and friends are good, and work is good, and still chugging away here at work. You know, so I don't know. I don't have many complaints. You?
Well, I started off 2021 with all of these New Year's resolutions. And here we are a couple of weeks in, and I'm the heaviest I've ever been in my life. My New Year's resolutions are out the window. And, you know what? I'm going to say this because I'm going to start today with 2021 all over again. Right. I'm going to start right now. I'm going to start eating healthy and working out. And so do you have any New Year's resolutions, and have you kept them?
No, I don't have any, and I haven't kept them. And I have a suggestion for you.
Didn't start off with anything?
Nothing.
Not a thing?
Nothing. I'm perfect the way I am.
It is something that you've had going for you for a very long time.
But my advice for a New Year's resolution is next year, just have your resolution to be the heaviest you've ever been, and then you'll hit it.
Yeah, you know, I feel sorry for my wife. You know, I
true.
catch glimpses as I'm walking through a room that has a mirror in it, and I'm like...
Yeah, I've wanted to remove all mirrors from my house for many years.
You know, I used to have all this self-confidence, and am I 5'2" now? Mm-hmm. I feel like I just keep shrinking, less confidence.
Yeah.
Anyway.
People used to stop us and in the airport when Clint and I would be walking through, and they'd say, you know, oh, you look just like Russell Crowe. I mean, it happened multiple times. I saw a video of Russell Crowe recently, and he's about 270 probably.
So I'm just kind of evolving
into
Russell Crowe.
Yep.
You know, Gladiator Russell Crowe was a big deal. You know, I was in college. I gladly took it. Now I'm a fluffball Russell Crowe.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, we should talk about real estate.
So today, turnkey real estate. It's been something that's been popular for the better part of the last decade. Mm-hmm. It's not something that I always did. You and I got together in 2010. It's something that you had a little bit more experience with. I kind of brought more of the property management experience. So why don't we start off with everybody out there that doesn't know what turnkey real estate is, and there's a lot of people that don't, just breaking it down and what is turnkey real estate at its core.
Sure. So before I get into kind of explaining it, you had a great summary about it when we've talked about it in the past. Say what that was.
I think I said the A to Z.
Yeah.
Turnkey real estate is basically you don't have to worry about everything that it takes to get you from A to Z with a property. You get to come in and start at Z. So the acquisition, the rehab, all of the surprises, you know, that come along with it, checking all of the systems that are in fully functioning working order. The property management is in place as far as screening tenants. And then 95% of the time, our tenant is already in place whenever someone buys the home. So you're truly coming in at Z, where if a person bought a home, they've got to find a realtor or find a way to acquire that home. The rehab, which is where a million disasters happen, with working with contractors and all of that. And then property management is kind of what brings it all together. That really secures your ongoing investment. That's already in place. We've already screened the tenant. That's a very extensive process, and from day one, it's essentially cash flow.
That's right. So, you went through that pretty quick, and it sounds pretty simple. You get a house that someone acquired. You've got a house that someone rehabbed, and you've got a house that is inspected, and property management's in place. And so it sounds pretty simple, each of those steps.
And people, today people think it is simple. There's a million real estate shows, a million podcasts, YouTube, that make the process seem extremely easy. However, it is very difficult. It's something that we perfected over a combined 40 years of real estate experience, where we have made tons of mistakes, and now those mistakes are limited and almost non-existent, but it still happens from time to time. But being in turnkey real estate and providing turnkey real estate to folks, all of those surprises and hiccups along the way are taken out for the customer.
That's right. And, we've got an entire team behind us to make those things happen. And so it's kind of step by step, with turnkey, the first step is acquisitions. And, it sounds like, well, why don't I just call a realtor? We'll make some offers on some houses. There's about a million things that can go wrong there. And, one thing that I was just telling Jamie, our sales manager, about the other day was I went to a tax sale and I bought a light post. I've told you this story many times.
Yep.
For $60,000. So I spent $60,000 on a parcel that had a light post on it, because in the advertising, the parcel ID that they had advertised was for the house, even though the legal notice wasn't. So it's not that I just didn't research. It's that there was a mistake in a posting. And, that's just one example.
And as far as tax sales and sheriff sales, that's a topic that we could get into and have a whole episode on, and something that you're an expert at that I don't claim to be really. That's another thing that you've always handled. But, you talk about real estate agents, and I think that that's a fun topic, just real quick, because, how many real estate agents, let's just say within the Metropolitan Indianapolis Board of Realtors, know anything about investment property and can help facilitate that? And we're talking about such a finite number of people. People don't even know how to pick up a HUD foreclosure. People don't know anything about rehab. They know they're in it for a commission and know nothing about investing.
Yeah, but even the one, and there's some really good specialists in investment real estate in the sense that they list them. There are some experts in our town that's what they do. They list foreclosures for the banks and for the HUD homes. I know all of them personally. You do too. Mm-hmm. Not a single one of them is really a real estate. Well, there's one of them that's a real estate investor. He buys at tax sales and such. But none of them are professional real estate investors.
They're just listing machines.
Correct.
Bank-owned,
right.
Corporate-owned, HUD-owned foreclosures.
Right. They don't look at the back end. They don't look at the property management. They don't look at the rehabs. Those aren't all things. So even the top experts in the field aren't necessarily the best at providing you a property that's going to be a good cash flowing asset. So, again, we can dive into each step of that process so deep, and we will in further episodes. But, after acquisitions comes the rehab, and that is a nightmare that could be 10 episodes. We've been doing this for, like Clint said, for a combined 40 years, and we still run into so many issues with rehabbing. We're very lucky we have the same contractors that we've had basically since getting in the business. And we hold on to them like grim death, because every time, and to get to these contractors, we've gone through literally hundreds of contractors. We've had money stolen. We've had, jobs done with fake flooring underneath. I remember you paid for a house that was literally a trampoline in the kitchen. That's you could literally bounce off the ground.
In between the laminate floor and the subfloor, you could literally bounce up and down.
Yep. And that's just one example.
Not to say, there's a million stories. There was just a handful of years ago, out of spite, we had a contractor unplug the sump pump.
That's right.
And once we got over to the property, 6 feet of water, in the basement of a finished basement that we had just rehabbed. It's the stories just go on and on. The contractors running off with payments and never hearing from them again. Although that does not happen to us, very often, because like you said, we work with the same people over and over again. And a lot of our contractors that we use, 100% of their business comes from our book of business. But someone that's trying to get into real estate that just goes to the yellow pages to find a contractor to rehab their property that they bought through Zillow or from a wholesaler or whatever avenue that they did, it's not impossible, but it's pretty close.
A lot of risks there. There's a lot of hidden expenses that'll grab you. There's a million things that will go wrong. And kind of before we go on to that next step of what is needed, if you try to do this on your own versus what turnkey real estate is, before we go on to that next step, it may sound like we're trying to scare folks almost with these nightmare stories, but we came to turnkey real estate because of this. We literally wanted to solve these things for ourselves as much as for our clients at the beginning, because it is an incredibly difficult thing to do to build a portfolio of single-family residential income-producing properties. Even if it's your full-time job and you've got the best team of experts, we have the most experienced team of experts in the industry, in the state by far.
For sure.
And it's still difficult. And so, I don't want this to feel like we're just fear-mongering, because there are success stories out there who have done it. We've helped people do it the old-fashioned way. But we're just trying to be honest about how real those risks are and why we believe in turnkey so much. Because at the end of the day, we genuinely believe in it. We do it because we believe it is the best solution and the best way for people to enter the market. So, the next part is kind of, after the rehabs, it's inspections. And, sounds like a small step. And, okay, I just call and get an inspection. Well, inspectors are across the board. Some try to find everything possible to justify themselves. Some miss too many things that aren't. We've got one of the reasons that turnkey works so well for our clients is we've got a rehab superintendent who goes out. Well, first of all, our acquisitions director goes out, finds the house, puts a bid together on what he sees that it will need. Then we have our rehab superintendent go out. He's a licensed bonded contractor with more experience than just about anyone I know.
Been with us for 15 years.
Yeah. He puts a bid together. Then he has three separate crews go out and bid it and try to find everything they can that needs fixed. Now, those folks, they make money by finding things that are wrong. So I feel like that's three more sets of eyeballs that are looking for issues. Then we rehab it. Then we have it inspected by a true third-party inspector. We fix the things on his summary report that he says need fixed. And then we have him inspected again to make sure we did those repairs and to make sure he just doesn't find anything else.
And those inspections are available to our clients.
Sure, we give them. They're embarrassing. They're literally, as you know, an inch thick, and it makes us look like we don't know what we're doing. But that's what we want. We want him to find everything.
But then it shows that we went back through that inspection, did every little minute thing, whether it could be conduit around a HVAC system,
right,
or
even if we think it's silly, if it's in the summary and it's needed for the house, we do it. Now, again, that sounds simple. You say, well, I'll go do real estate on my own, and I'll just get an inspection after the contractor goes through. People don't realize how many steps there is to that. It's then getting the contractor out to fix those things that are found. It's then getting it re-inspected to make sure that contractor did them right, which even with our crews, they only take it 90% of the way. That second inspection, we had to start having contractors be there for it because they were missing little things. And it seems like simple things. But anyway, that process is much harder than people realize. It's not just getting an inspection and going, okay, we're ready to go. It's a week-long process. It's genuinely a week-long process using the best team and the most experienced people. So that part can be tough. And, if you want to laugh, hire 3 different inspectors to go inspect the house.
It's all over the place, right?
It's bananas. Mm-hmm. It's bananas. And I had a house that I was trying to sell, one of my first houses down in Broad Ripple, and the people brought an inspector in. And before their inspector came in, I hired my own just so I could have something to argue with it for. And there was literally not one single thing that matched on either report. Just not even a single thing.
So, I mean, it's important to note that it is a true opinion
correct
of what's going on at a property, that you don't always find everything, and the opinions vary from inspector to inspector.
Yeah, and you and I have been through that so many times that it's mind-blowing when we go through it. But, and so the next step in that process to be able to provide you a client a turnkey house is the most important part, and where it can go wrong and where we see everyone in the industry failing. Well, not failing, but that's where we see the bulk of failures that come from, which is property management, which is you're the expert on. And I genuinely mean you're the expert on. I don't know anyone definitely in the state that has more experience than you, but we travel around the country and meet with other groups just like ours, and besides MAC in Chicago, which is no longer in business, I don't believe, I think that you have more experience than anyone else in the field.
Well, been doing it a long time. It happened by accident through the Great Recession. We had some properties that were being managed, but a lot of our for sale signs got switched out to for rent signs during that time because houses weren't selling anymore. So we literally grew our property management portfolio from property 1 to property 825.
So you're saying that when they didn't sell, you had no choice because these people weren't living in their houses.
Correct. My experience through 2002 to 2010-ish was I had a dozen clients that I would help find a house as their realtor. I would be their GC for the property, essentially.
General contractor.
And I would get the property fixed up for them, and then I would resell it for them. So we were just turning and burning, turning houses. There was lots of newer foreclosures back in those days, and it was pretty easy to do. It was the greatest job that I've ever had because it was very relationship based with my clients.
You're helping people flip houses.
It was great.
It's the dream. It's what
and how it was really becoming sexy with Flip This House on A&E and these different networks. But I was young and naive, and I thought that that's how real estate was going to be forever. But then our houses stopped selling. Everyone knows what happened in 2007, 8, 9, and got into property management, but always grew exceptionally slow.
So on the flips, how many did you have that were sitting out there for sale where you said, oh my gosh, the market has crashed. For my clients, I need to get these cash flowing at the very least. And that caused you to enter a whole industry over that. So you must have been flipping a lot of houses.
We were. I was doing roughly one a month, which at that time I thought
for yourself.
Was correct. That I thought was a lot.
Yeah.
And then for other people, I was representing another 4 or 5 a month.
Yeah.
So you're talking about 6 a month. It was great money. It was very fruitful. It was very rewarding. And like I said, I thought that's how it was going to be.
So you had like 20 houses probably in the pipeline then, including your own, that weren't selling.
Yeah, and this is before technology really entered into the game. I'd literally have stacks of offers around my desk.
I remember.
And having my client what we were looking for.
We didn't work together then. We were just
friendly competitors.
Yeah, cooperation. Yep. And I'd come over to your office, and your whole office, you had a big office too. All along the walls was stacks of offers. I always got a kick out of it.
It was nuts to try to keep that all together, which is basically goes back into the acquisition piece of our turnkey. But then, that launched the property management division. It's grown slowly over the last 13 years. And we take care of everything. We've been doing it for a very long time. I think that's one of the biggest questions people need to ask their property manager. I'm sorry, but if your property manager's been in it for a year or two, probably not going to bode well for your investment. There's lots of tricks that people learn along the way. We've seen all of those. We've rode the ups and downs. Our systems, we can get into another episode, but as far as screening, as far as the inspection process that we go through, as far as rent collection, everything is very detailed. We have specific team members that handle each. We have 24-hour maintenance around the clock if needed. That's something that just kind of happens over time. Another thing, like with property management, if you see a company that has just grown overnight, it's really hard to acquire even 10 properties. a month as a property management company. And unless we've seen them come and go that mass market and get 50, 100 properties right out of the gate, and then 6 months later they're out of business.
We were on a trip. You and I were on a trip to Florida, and we met with a few different property managers. And I remember going into a property management office that was incredibly, incredibly impressive, but they were new still, and they had grown way past us in the matter of a year versus what took us 13 years. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking, my gosh, I guess I'm just not that good of a businessman. And I remember you saying, just wait. And I said, oh, they look...
Smoke and mirrors.
Smoke and mirrors. Mm-hmm. And then you've got, in Ohio, there's another one where you've said for years, it's smoke and mirrors as it outgrew us. We've seen these companies come and go like that. It is a incredibly difficult and not very rewarding business, line of work, property management. And to get it right, it's so rare where someone gets it right. So I would caution people to really research the property management side, no matter where you buy, whether it's through us. If you're really interested in Turnkey, which I think any investor, seasoned or beginner, should look at, especially beginners. I think it's the number one way to enter the market. It's the easiest. It's the best. You're going to be backed by a great team, whether it's our team or there's others like us in other cities. There's actually a couple others in Indy that we're friends with them. They're smaller than us, but they do a good work, and every city has great turnkey providers. So you want to look at their property management as much as you want to look at anything.
I think it's so important, and it's so important. We'll get into it on different podcasts where we spend an entire couple of episodes on property management. One quick note: we have a friend of ours in the business that does a podcast, and his biggest recommendation to his listeners was be kind to your property managers. They're working for very, very small margins, and they're providing you a great service. And if you're with a truly experienced property manager, you have to hold on to them like grim death. You see it a lot where people will call and badger the team over, silly things. Be kind to your property managers. They have a large team. They're working on very, very, very minute numbers, and it really needs to be a collaborative effort with the property manager and the owner, open line of communication, total respect for one another. That's the best way to success.
Yeah, that's why you want to match up so well with the turnkey operation that you decide to go with. You want to make sure that they have the same kind of ethics and growth ideas as you. You just want to make sure that you can at least work with them more as a partner than as some little company that you hire to do these things. Because if you treat these companies out there like that, they're doing so much for so little that it's not worth their time to have your business. That's what people don't understand. It's you're talking about $70 a month, that they'll make on gross, and then they have to pay their team out of that. So, it's very small margins, and you got to treat these property managers, the good ones, which are few and far between. You got to hold on to them. So that's kind of the steps.
That's
of the
the A to Z.
That's the A to Z.
I think it's important that we get into some real life situations that we've seen, nightmare situations within Turnkey. We have thousands of them that we've seen over the years because we've been doing this a long time. But let's get into a couple situations that people see with turnkey providers that truly don't know what they're doing. They started up their business as a turnkey expert and then failed miserably. I could think of a couple, immediately. Share some. We had one really, really bad situation here in Indianapolis. I don't think we have to mention any names, but we had a national news anchor that got behind a local person here, and they started providing homes. I mean, it's easy to look up if you want to look it up on the internet.
He's out on bail right now.
He's out on bail. Tell us a little bit about that situation. It was pretty messed up.
Yeah, so, as much as I preach, that I believe in turnkey and no matter where you do it, you also have to heavily screen who you do it with and what the product is. And that's very difficult to do, especially
But this guy's
Correct.
on a national news show. I mean, this has got to be the gospel. I mean, I can turn on national news and see this real estate expert out there tell me that I need to get into turnkey real estate. So, like, people were duped so bad by this guy. And I know that I'm getting pissed off just talking about it because they believed him. And we know what happened. Like,
we knew it
that's
as
how hard it is to screen is what I'm saying, because, I mean, this guy is a national figure.
we knew it as it was happening before it went, nuclear, that it was going to eventually. It's basically a giant Ponzi scheme where, there was ways to catch it.
I keep interrupting, but we saw this going on, and we saw the types of houses that they were providing. I mean, the literal turds of real estate in Indianapolis.
Lipstick on a pig.
The worst neighborhoods that I won't travel to. We won't put our staff there. I mean, you can't go there without having a gun on you,
right.
And you're still not safe.
And we had clients coming up to us at events that we would do and say, you guys really, the returns that they're getting are
correct,
unbelievable.
We don't know what we're doing.
You guys really need to take a look at what you're doing. We literally were lectured by people about this, and so
I'm going to shut up. I'm getting hot just talking about it. Just talk about a couple of the situations that happened within this turnkey provider here locally.
Well, some of the funniest, I shouldn't say funniest because people were definitely hurt by it, but some of the most outrageous ones were people were buying houses that didn't exist, that literally did not exist. And someone bought a house that burned down 3 days prior to closing, and paid cash $80,000. We were inundated with calls after this company went out of business for folks who were trying to scramble and figure out what the heck to do. So I have a list of probably 100 stories of what happened here. But
that particular situation, the house burns down, they still close on it. But then what happened after is probably the most egregious thing that I can think of. Because, you think, well, man, maybe they didn't know that it burned down, but they did. But that person who bought it still received rent money, correct, from a property that did not exist.
Right. So a lot of these companies, when you see them implode, they will sell you a house. They'll say it's rented, and they'll send you rent checks. Well, they just made $80,000. Well, they just got $80,000 on the sale for a house they paid $4,000 for. So they got $76,000 just to slowly give you $600 of it back to string you along for a while, And we see this stuff all the time, and sadly, in all markets. And sadly, screening is difficult. These guys, we could sit here for an hour and get worked up talking about just how ridiculous and awful this stuff is. But the bottom line is, you've got to screen. These people were buying houses without final pictures of the house. They would be strung along and they would still close because they were almost hypnotized by these pieces of paper that had these great returns written on them and a picture of what the house could be. And it's like they were hypnotized into thinking, oh, this is great. You guys need to do this. Mm-hmm. Well, no, we want to offer real houses at real returns. And that's what the real providers do.
Right.
And this is a whole nother episode we can get into, but it's going to sound like the dumbest thing anyone's ever told you guys, which is if the returns are high, be very cautious. Look for boring. If you're looking for real estate, for turnkey investment, residential real estate, for cash flow purposes, don't chase returns. Don't do it. We see people get burned.
If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. I can hear my dad, right now. He used that line forever, and it's so true in our industry. There was another provider, you mentioned one that came out of Ohio. They actually got offices, here in downtown, claimed to be real estate experts, and in their name, talked about the returns was part of their name, and I don't want to mention mention the name, but there again, we had people say, well, I talked to these experts that have an office downtown, and we'd pull it up on the website and be like, oh my gosh. I mean,
one was a multi-level marketing, guy who'd never done real estate in his life, and suddenly they get 2 microphones and they're suddenly experts. And to be honest, that's part of what motivated us to do this podcast. Is we were seeing people out there, the pretenders, that really they would shine themselves up and they would come off as professionals. And it's hard to know when those people are real or not. And it starts with the properties. That's where you got to start. But before we dive too deep down that rabbit hole, turnkey overall, we want to just kind of wrap that up and explain. Turnkey is, again, you hit the ground at sea.
You have to calm me down. I'm still pissed off. I get pissed off talking about these companies.
It's awful.
I got to get my blood pressure to not go there. But I'm sick of seeing people get ripped off.
I know.
I'm tired of it. And then we got to answer to it, too. So.
And as they're getting ripped off, people question our integrity by saying you can't meet their returns. So it's frustrating being in the industry surrounded by a lot of sharks that are just doing awful things. So believe me, I get you. But at the end of the day, if you screen it, and you have to screen it, turnkey real estate is a great entry. Now, everyone, sadly, part of the reason we had to do this topic is because turnkey means different things to everyone. Some people, turnkey just means the house is ready to rent. Good luck. Here's your house. Go get yourself a tenant and move on. Some turnkey provides everything but doesn't give you inspections. At the end of the day, you should probably look for a group that does all steps of A to Z that we went over here today. And the good ones do that. The bad ones don't. So if you go through those steps, if your provider goes through those steps, you're off to a good start. That's a great place to be.
That's a really good point. We also see a lot of failed turnkey situations because certain providers will provide the house and then say, we don't do property management. Good luck. So with us, not only are we selling a real property in a good neighborhood with good rents and secure good tenants, we do the ongoing management. So we want to make sure that situation is as good as possible because we're not passing the buck to anybody else. The buck stays with us, and we continue to do the management.
Yeah, we put a tenant in your house, and you think you want a good tenant. We're the ones that has to deal with them. We want them to be a good tenant. We want them to pay. We don't have time to go chase bad payers, which, that can be a whole other topic because there's a point that we focus on, and we'll go over the types of properties that we focus on. But the main reason we focus on the types of properties we focus on is because they can get good tenants. We're in that top 5% of rental, according to the Census Bureau in our market. So we tailor to that market.
And I think that we can provide some real life examples on a future show. I think it'd be good to show, and even 2, 3, 4 episodes to show kind of the product that we have. I think that would help. But I think that we're kind of getting to the end of our time today. Any other last minute words of advice?
Well, as Nike says, just do it. Go screen, go find a good turnkey provider that clicks all those steps. Don't go chasing returns or houses in bad areas. Focus on people that you can work with really well when you're looking for a turnkey provider. Make sure that you guys match up well, and then just go do it. A lot of people regret not doing things more than they regret doing things. This is a great time to get into turnkey real estate, whether it's with us or someone else. We really, really advise you to go do it.
Well, our phone lines are open if someone ever wants to talk to us about turnkey real estate. Like Scott said, there's other great turnkey providers across the country that you could talk to as well. If Indianapolis is not your market, we believe in Indianapolis, obviously. But to summarize it, don't trust anyone. There's lots of smoke and mirrors in our industry. We've been doing this an exceptionally long time. We see clowns come and go. As you can see, I get worked up over it. I got to calm down a little bit, but anyway, for the Homeboys, we appreciate you being with us. We'll be on another podcast here soon, and we look forward to speaking with you about your investments. Till then, take care.